Hey, it's me, Norm McFucking Donald. I traveled all the way back from the afterlife to tell you that this show has spoilers and bad words in it, the classics, shit folk, etc. Please listen responsibly.
In the words of Lily von Stupp, Blazing Saddles, Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome to Beer Me a Movie.
Beer Me a Movie.
I'm Dave Michaels.
I'm Bryan Betts.
And this is the show where we're going to be tossing movies back and forth week after week, surprising each other.
Yeah, we have no idea what we're talking about even next week right now.
I have no idea.
No, you don't know. I know.
Spoilers, Brian's got the first pick here. But that is kind of the basic gist of this podcast is we're going to be beering each other movies.
Yeah.
And occasionally, once a month, the last week of every month, you, the audience, our dear, dear listeners, are going to be beering us a movie.
Yeah, via social media, you can give us your suggestions, and then we'll be randomly selecting one to talk about at the end of every month.
Against our will. It should be noted, it's completely against our will. We have to do whatever comes up on that list. I am terrified.
Yeah, you could be nice and give us a good movie. You could be totally evil and you know, give us something that we really don't want to talk about. There's a couple stipulations.
There are.
The first is that no porn.
No porn.
Come
as
on.
Interested as we are, no porn.
You know, send us those suggestions in the inbox, and we'll watch them on our own time, but it won't be for the show.
No, I think they say slide into your DM.
Yeah, slide that porn suggestion into my DM. This is a weird start.
We're starting off horny. This is good.
The second rule is that it has to be accessible on streaming. Somewhere. Even if we have to rent it to watch it, but just so that it's accessible to everybody who listens to the show to watch. So we can all have a discussion together about said movie.
Well, it's going to be me and you having a discussion and them listening along. But join us on this journey that is Beer Me a Movie of us watching just a bunch of random shit together.
It's
and having a good old time.
A lot more fun if you've seen the movie and can follow along.
Absolutely. And the way that this show is going to be structured, this is our episode 0, so it seems like the appropriate time to kind of lay it all out there for what we're going to be doing. Week after week, either Brian's going to beer me a movie or I'm going to beer him a movie. We're not going to have any idea the movie that we're going to be beering each other. But the way that we're going to lay it out is we're going to be scoring every movie 0 to 100 with 10 different categories that are 1 to 10 or 0 to 10, I guess.
Right. So a total score of 100 separated into 10 categories. And the categories are as follows, as we've deemed appropriate through 4 years of doing another podcast.
Exactly.
Story and motivation is the first category.
And that is pretty much going to be, how does the story flow? 3-act structure, motivation of the main characters, motivation of the villain, whoever it might be.
Right.
How does it fit?
And we're going to follow that up with the protagonist of the story.
The guy pushing the story along.
Right. Followed by the antagonist of the story.
The hurdle of the story who's stopping the protagonist. I like I'm just yelling out basic story structure to people.
Let me define these words for you. And then once we've talked about the protagonist and the antagonist, we're going to talk about casting.
Which is super important.
It is. And this is, if you followed us on our previous podcast, the K-Podcasters, this is where things like female characters will come into play.
Or it could be the lead characters, could be an ensemble bit, how they all work together. But casting is ridiculously important. And it's about time we address it.
It is. Follow that up with style and tone.
Everybody's got their own style. Everybody's got their own tone. Directors have certain visions, but they're not the only ones dictating it.
Right.
So are the production designers. So are the costume designers. So are the post-production team, style and tone.
And then we're going to talk about the director.
As we should. It's his vision or her vision overall. It's very important to talk about what they are picturing in their heads and what they are putting on screen.
And they get all of that, of course, from the screenplay.
The words written on the papers that peoples are going to read.
Exactly. You know, the words of the movie, the things that happen, but like that they say and stuff.
Sort of like one-liners, but built out a little bit.
Yeah, like one-liners, but taken to another level. And then, of course, we follow that with music.
We've talked about the Danny Elfsmans.
And the Michael Giacchinos. And the John Williamses.
And the Hans Zimmers. And the Howard Shores. And You name it. It's how the music fits to the film that we're watching.
Is
it appropriate? Is it out of left field? Is it a great soundtrack, kind of like a James Gunn movie?
Right.
Where
or a
you build
Edgar
pretty
Wright.
much a movie built around a soundtrack at that point.
Yeah. Music. Super important.
Super duper important.
Then we followed up with the only category that is not completely arbitrary and up to our own whims, box office.
The way we built this out is based on the percentage that it's made versus budget.
Right. And it's totally linear, not up to us. We take the numbers from Box Office Mojo, we do the math, and that is the number that's assigned to it. Basically, you have your bombs, your flops, your averages, hits, mega hits, and then blockbusters. So if anything's making over 250% of its original budget, it's getting a 10 in this category.
Absolutely. We have no say in this thing, though.
Right.
That is completely up to the numbers.
I think it's the only category that's not eligible to get turned up to 11.
I agree.
And we'll get there shortly.
We sure will.
The last category is impact on the industry.
And the impact on the industry is pretty much what has it done to push the industry forward, or where does it fall in the history of the industry?
Right. What is its effect on all of the film that has come out since it?
Some of it's going to be garbage.
A lot of it might be.
Some of it's going to be huge.
Yeah.
But it's all arbitrary. Don't forget that.
That's right.
We're just here to have a good time.
It's our opinion of what its impact on the industry has been. It's not necessarily its actual impact.
Exactly. And because 0 to 10 isn't a good enough score, if something is particularly great, we're going to Spinal Tap that and turn it up to 11.
Spinal Tap is something that probably needs to get added to the list.
It might. I don't know what's on your list. You don't know what's on my list.
Exactly.
So maybe it's on my list already, Bryan.
Maybe it's already on mine too. Who knows?
That is.
I have a feeling we probably have some overlap.
I'm okay with overlap, and in which case I want to beat you to the punch.
Because
I want it to be on
my
terms.
My terms, yeah. Oh, is this going to become a competition now?
It might be.
Wasn't ready for that.
The tricky part about it is that for the story motivation, we're going to read the plot directly off of Wikipedia. And the plot off of Wikipedia, as we've done on some Patreon episodes preparing for this, is hysterical.
Yes. Sometimes it's very watered down. Sometimes it's super vague. And reminder, dear listeners, that it's extremely editable.
It sure is. So you can hop onto Wikipedia anytime you want, and you should, and you can edit whatever the plot says for whatever movie we're about to talk about.
You can have a direct impact on the show.
I could not be more excited for this show.
I'm very excited. Why don't we give the listeners a little background on us?
Bryan and I have done 192 episodes plus of a show called The Cape Podcasters, which was a comic book and superhero movie podcast.
Yes.
Every episode ran about 60 to 90 to 120 minutes or whatever it might be. We're going to try to keep everything closer to the 60-minute mark here.
Yeah,
we possibly can.
Trying to keep it a little bit tighter. Prior to that, we're both kind of film nerds.
We're super film nerds.
I mean, I know you went to school for film.
And worked in the industry for 6 years, 5 years, whatever it was. Worked on many big projects, big box office movies, and
there's a couple in there.
Television shows. We'll get there probably.
Maybe. I mean, if not here, then where?
Right. Fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, your IMDb page has all sorts of credits.
And it will gain more credits as we go along, as I'm taking it a lot less seriously. I'm just adding credits day by day based on whatever I feel like throwing on there.
Meanwhile, I like movies.
And I'm so happy to be talking about everything we can with Bryan here.
No, I actually also have a degree in radio, TV, film production. So, I kind of did some film school stuff. I have a bit of a history there. I mean, obviously, I'm no Dave, but
I'm barely a Dave when it comes down to it. And because this is Beer Me a Movie, we're going to get in the spirit and we're going to beer our faces some beer while we
it only seems appropriate.
Movies and have a good time.
Yeah.
And we hope that you watch along with us.
If you were there with us for the Cape Podcasters, this is going to feel a little bit more laid back.
It's going to be a whole lot more laid back. And if you've not listened to the Cape Podcasters before, go back and maybe give it a listen.
Yeah. you know, if you're into listening to podcasts that are over and done with.
Exactly, that there is no future for.
There's also a whole lot of movies in there that we will probably never even think about again. So
I can't wait. Sincerely cannot wait to clear my brain of that stuff.
I have to be honest, though, still a big fan of the genre, and it'll be a surprise if I don't ever revisit it on this show.
Yeah, samesies. Probably totally going to revisit it at some point, and I'm very excited to revisit it.
Yeah.
Not anytime soon.
Yeah. Now, I get the impression that you have an agenda with some of your picks in the near future. We haven't discussed it a lot because it is supposed to be a surprise, but I know you're interested in some more historical, like proper cinema film stuff.
To a point, yes.
Where I'm more very entertainment focused.
Yes, I'm very, very interested in movies that have an interesting production behind them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because I like the story behind the story.
Yeah.
I think that's a super interesting thing to talk about. We've all seen the movies, but there's always a story behind the making of the movies. And that's really where my interest lies.
Yeah.
If possible. Sure, I like some garbage too. I will fully say that Freddy Got Fingered is a personal favorite of mine. And yeah, I think it has a 0 on Rotten Tomatoes. Fuck you. Fuck you.
I somehow knew before we even started recording episode 0 that Freddy Got Fingered was going to get name dropped.
As it should have been at all times. But we have a pretty big rule about movies that we like to talk about just between us, is that you have to tear down the good and celebrate the bad.
Right.
Not every movie is perfect, and not every shit movie is the shittiest thing that's ever existed. We don't like to live on the extremes.
Right.
We like to kind of live in the middle.
As far as movies are concerned.
What's your agenda? You said that you like entertaining movies.
Yeah,
what are you more going to throw my way?
See, I respect the film industry for what it's done for culture.
Okay.
And as far as cultural impact of some of these movies, but mostly I like to sit down and dissociate with reality for, 2 hours or however long these movies are.
So like a suspension of disbelief.
Exactly. The suspension of disbelief, but more so just sheer popcorn factor I'm into here. And I think my first pick is going to reflect that.
Well, that's kind of laying it on pretty fucking thick there, Bryan. I guess for the first time ever, since you've set it up now, Bryan, why don't you beer me a movie for our first episode? What's it going to be?
I'm going to
I'm like jittery about this.
This is not one of your,
I have no clue what it
Martin
is.
Scorsese film auteur kind of things.
Okay.
I do believe it is the first Soderbergh film we've ever talked about, though.
I am ridiculously curious.
And
I have a guess, and I will tell you if I'm right now in my head that you said Soderbergh film. What do you got?
As far as sheer popcorn factor goes, I don't think there's a lot that beat this movie. I'm also a huge fan of this certain genre. For episode 1, we're going to be talking about Ocean's 11.
That is a brilliant choice. That was my guess when you said Soderbergh.
It checks out.
And I am fully erect. I don't know why I put a question mark on it. I am fully erect.
Okay, good. Yeah.
There it is.
I was worried about the question mark for a second.
That is a fantastic choice. Episode 1.
Episode 1.
Ocean's 11.
That cast alone.
The cast alone is great. We're going to be eating along with Brad Pitt the whole time.
It'll be a fun ride for episode 1.
It absolutely will be.
And I'm anticipating your pick for episode 2.
Stand by. We're going to be throwing things back and forth to each other quite a bit.
This is going to be a lot of fun.
In terms of episode 0, Bryan, anything you missed? Anything you want to add?
Follow us on all of our social media. It's at Beer Me a Movie on most things, and on things that it's not, it's at Beer Me a Movie Pod.
Do your own research.
Yeah.
Probably.
Find us.
Honestly, find us.
If you search Cape Podcasters, you'll probably find us for now.
There's that too. We'll get there in terms of fixing it. We'll get there.
Episode 1 will have more concrete answers on where you can find us.
That all you got?
Also join us on Patreon.
You could do that. We have a lot of stuff going on Patreon.
There's so much going on Patreon.
We've recently recognized that we can beer each other anything.
Anything at all.
Where it could be a TV show, it could be a bracket, it could be a record or an album or of music.
There's a whole
or anything like that.
Whole lot of stuff going on over on Patreon. And if you're super impatient and can't wait for episode 1, we've already done 3 prep episodes.
We sure have. We got quite a bit in the can.
So you can go back and listen to us preparing for this very podcast, which should be fun.
Which is also very different, but also not. But also, yes. So next week, Ocean's 11. We'll see you then.
Ocean's 11. They should have called the movie Brad Pitt Eats for 116 minutes instead. See you next week. And try not to dream of that handsome devil George Clooney too much until then.